the self-proclaimed king of the South, T.I. may finally be running out of time. After years of arrests, lawsuits, and non-stop legal battles, the pressure around him is bigger than ever, and now rumors of a serious sentence are spreading fast, leaving fans asking one chilling question. Is this the end of T.I.'s reign? At the 2026 Grammy Awards, T.I. shocked the hip-hop world by announcing that Kill the King will be his final album. But with his legal troubles stacking up and new conflicts surfacing, people are starting to wonder if this isn't just the end of an era, but the end of his career altogether. T.O. understand how things reached this point. We have to go back to the very beginning. Clifford Joseph Harris Jr., born on September 25, 1980, and known to the world as T.I. or sometimes Tip, is an American rapper and actor who rose from the streets of Atlanta, Georgia, to become one of hip-hop's most influential figures. Raised in Atlanta, Harris is widely credited as one of the pioneers of the hip-hop subgenre trap music, alongside fellow Georgia rappers Jeezy and Gucci Mane. But long before the prison sentences, before the federal investigations, and before the controversies that now surround his name, T.I. was simply a determined kid from Bankhead, Atlanta, chasing a dream and building a plan to make it out. In the late 1990s, he connected with local music executive Colin K.P. Prather, joining his company Ghetto Vision Entertainment, an imprint connected to Arista Records and LaFace Records by 1999. His debut studio album, I'm Serious, 2001, received a lukewarm response both critically and commercially, which led to his departure from the label. But that setback didn't stop him. Soon after, T.I. signed with Atlantic Records, where he began climbing toward mainstream success. By 2003, he took things even further by co-founding his own label imprint, Grand Hustle Records, laying the foundation for what would eventually become one of the most recognizable brands in hip-hop. But for T.I., success never came without shadows following close behind. In 1998, he was arrested and later convicted in Georgia on charges related to cocaine distribution, manufacturing, and providing authorities with a false name. The court sentenced him to 3 years in prison, though he was released after serving about 1 year. That felony conviction at just 18 years old would follow him like a shadow for nearly the next 2 decades. After his release, Harris redirected his focus toward music, determined to build something bigger than his past mistakes. He began gaining serious recognition after appearing on fellow Atlanta rapper Bone Crusher's 2003 single Never Scared, which became his first entry on the Billboard Hot 100. That moment helped introduce his name to a much wider audience. Soon after, his second studio album, Trap Music, in 2003, climbed to number 4 on the Billboard 200 chart and produced hit singles like Rubber Band Man and Let's Get Away. But just as his career was gaining momentum, trouble resurfaced. In 2004, he was detained for a parole violation right when Rubber Band Man was pushing him into the spotlight. For many artists, that moment would have been a turning point, a signal to slow down and change direction. But for T.I., the pattern seemed to continue. Earlier in 2002, there had already been an incident involving him carrying a 10mm pistol, and another 2004 case where authorities reportedly discovered a silencer-modified weapon along with a large amount of ammunition. Yet despite all the headlines and legal pressure, his music career was not slowing down. In fact, it was accelerating. His next 3 studio albums all debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200. His 4th and 5th albums, King 2006 and T.I. vs. T.I.P. 2007, were powered by major hits like What You Know and Big Things Poppin' Do It, both reaching the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 at the same time. His influence was expanding beyond music. Harris appeared in the film ATL, and even showed up in commercials for Chevrolet alongside NASCAR driver Dale Earnhardt Jr. Financially, the rise was just as dramatic. In 2006, Forbes placed him on its list of top-earning rappers, estimating that he'd earned around $16 million that year alone. Then came October 2007, the moment that would completely change the trajectory of T.I.'s career. The rapper was taken into custody around 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time in Atlanta, right where the BET Hip Hop Awards were being filmed. Harris was actually the night's top nominee, up for 9 awards including CD of the Year and Lyricist of the Year, but he never even made it to the stage. Instead, T.I. was arrested for attempting to illegally purchase firearms just hours before he was scheduled to perform at the awards show. This was not a minor possession situation. Authorities stated that Harris had provided his bodyguard $12,000 in cash to buy the weapons, something he was legally prohibited from doing because he was already a convicted felon. According to court documents, Harris had been convicted on felony drug charges back in 1998, and a federal affidavit also pointed out that he had previous arrests involving firearms. By that point, federal investigators had already been paying close attention. Authorities later said that Harris arranged a bodyguard to withdraw $12,000 from a bank specifically to purchase the weapons. After the arrest, the bodyguard placed several phone calls to Harris, which investigators recorded as part of the case. The plan, according to authorities, was for Harris to meet the bodyguard in a shopping center parking lot in Midtown Atlanta and take possession of firearms. When he arrived at the location, authorities moved in and arrested him without incident. But the situation became even more serious after the search that followed. Investigators reported finding 3 additional firearms inside the vehicle Harris drove to the meeting location. One of them was loaded and positioned between the driver's seat, where Harris had been sitting, and the center console. When authorities later searched his home, they discovered 6 more firearms, 5 of them loaded and stored in his bedroom closet. Because the case involved federal gun charges, Harris was facing a potential 30-year prison sentence in 2007. In the end, the court ordered him to pay a $100,000 fine, and he was sentenced to 1 year in prison after completing 1,000 hours of community service while under house arrest. That sentence, a year and a day, came from a plea agreement. After being arrested for attempting to purchase machine guns and silencers, T.I. accepted a deal with prosecutors, ultimately serving just over a year, even though the charges carried a possible 10-year sentence. And this is where another major figure enters the story. Because when the plea deal became public, 50 Cent openly accused Tip of cooperating with authorities, publicly labeling him a snitch. The accusation spread quickly through hip-hop media and online forums, planting the seeds for a rivalry that would quietly simmer for years before reigniting in 2026. T.I. served his time on the federal weapons case. When he was released, he began completing community service and tried to reshape his image. The multi-platinum rapper even starred in T.I.'s road to redemption. 45 days ago, an MTV reality series that followed his efforts to reduce time on his sentence by finishing community service requirements. The show documented him visiting schools and community groups, speaking to young people about avoiding the same mistakes that had put his own future at risk. But the calm didn't last long. In September 2010, Harris was arrested again, this time in Los Angeles on drug-related charges after authorities reported he was found with 4 ecstasy pills. The timing made the situation even more serious, because he was still on probation from the earlier federal gun case. Soon after, the Grammy-winning rapper appeared back in court. A judge ultimately sentenced a 30-year-old hip-hop star to 11 months in prison for violating the terms of his probation. During the hearing, Harris acknowledged the mistake directly in front of court. Speaking to Charles Pinnell Jr., the U.S. District Judge overseeing the case, he admitted the violation and addressed the situation openly. "I don't want it, and I don't need drugs in my life anymore. I want them completely out of my life." Those were the words T.I. shared as he faced the consequences of another violation. The court sentenced him to 11 months in prison, a decision that quickly sparked reactions across the hip-hop world. Among the loudest responses came from 50 Cent, who publicly questioned why Tamika "Tiny" Harris hadn't taken responsibility to protect her husband. The comments quickly turned into a public controversy. T.I. did not take the remarks lightly and responded directly in a Vibe cover story that "I'ma tell you, 50 Cent and anybody else, we're not gonna have no discussion about what my old lady would have, or could have done when it comes to me," he said firmly. He continued by making his position clear. He would be the only one in his family to face legal consequences, if it came to that. According to him, none of his other family members had ever seen the inside of a jail cell, and he intended to keep it that way. Not long after public exchange, the two artists eventually spoke directly and managed to settle the tension. In December that year, 50 Cent later told Vibe that he and T.I. had worked things out during a phone conversation that at times became heated, but ultimately cleared the air. Still, the legal struggles surrounding T.I. were far from over. After the arrest, he decided to change the title of his 7th studio album. What was originally planned as King Uncaged was renamed No Mercy, reflecting the reality of his new prison sentence on the same day he was sentenced for violating probation. T.I. released the lead single Get Back Up, featuring Chris Brown. The message behind the track focused on resilience and moving forward despite setbacks. T.I. officially began serving that sentence in November 2010, with a projected release date of September 29, 2011. Meanwhile, the album No Mercy was released on December 7, 2010, and it performed strongly on the charts. The project debuted at number 4 on the U.S. charts and sold more than 159,000 copies in its first week. Eventually, the Recording Industry Association of America certified the album gold, recognizing over 500,000 copies sold. For a moment, it seemed like the rapper had managed to push through another storm. But the cycle of headlines wasn't over why ET.IN 2018. Another incident brought his name back into the news, this time following an arrest outside his own home. Soon after, the rapper's attorney released a statement addressing the situation. According to the statement released by his legal team, T.I. was wrongfully arrested early that morning while simply trying to enter the gated community, where his wife Tamika, Tiny Harris, and their family live. The statement explained that when Tip arrived at the guardhouse, the security guard on duty was asleep. It reportedly took several moments before T.I. could wake the guard and identify himself. After waking up, T.I. clearly told the guard who he was and requested entry into the community. Despite that, the guard allegedly refused to allow him inside. During the situation, T.I. contacted Tiny by phone, and she confirmed directly that he should be allowed to the gate immediately. Even with that confirmation, the guard continued refusing entry without giving a clear reason. According to the statement, words were exchanged during a tense moment, and neither the guard or a supervisor eventually contacted police. When officers arrived, T.I.'s attorney claimed they were not interested in hearing his explanation and instead chose to end the situation by placing him under arrest. The case eventually calmed down in court. T.I. later entered a no contest plea related to swearing, while the other accusations were dismissed. Initially, after the argument with the guard outside his home, he had been arrested and charged with simple assault, disorderly conduct, and public drunkenness. Then came another unexpected situation in 2024. This time, the arrest happened in an airport and was later revealed to be a case of mistaken identity. Authorities briefly took T.I. into custody after confusing him with a wanted individual who happened to have the same name, Clifford Harris. The mix-up was resolved quickly. His attorney stated that he managed to secure T.I.'s release within 2 hours. A judge later reviewed the extradition order connected to the case and dismissed it entirely after determining that T.I. did not match the suspect's physical description, including the listed weight. Even though that incident was resolved, it happened while the rapper already had other legal issues drawing attention. At 43 years old, T.I. was still dealing with ongoing legal matters, including a sexual assault and battery lawsuit that was already making headlines. Looking at the timeline, the pattern in his life becomes hard to ignore. Arrest, sentence, release, then another arrest, another sentence, another release. A cycle that has repeatedly followed the career of T.I. But the legal history surrounding him goes far beyond firearms cases, drug charges, or probation violations. Starting in 2021, a new wave of serious allegations began surfacing. Accusations that threatened not only his career, but potentially his freedom as well. Then the story took an even more serious turn. T.I. and his wife Tamika, Tiny Harris, were sued for defamation by Sabrina Peterson, who had publicly shared allegations against the couple earlier that year. In a January Instagram post, Peterson claimed that T.I., whose real name is Clifford Harris, once put a gun to her head during an altercation. The accusations quickly gained attention online when Peterson began sharing messages from more than 30 women who alleged they had experienced troubling encounters involving the couple. According to those statements, the women claimed they had been drugged, pressured, or manipulated into situations involving sexual activity. Soon after, a lawyer representing several accusers sent a letter outlining even more serious allegations. The letter accused the Harrises of involvement in acts such as sexual abuse, forced ingestion of illegal substances, kidnapping, threats, and false imprisonment during incidents that allegedly occurred between 2005 and 2018. The impact on T.I.'s career was immediate. Following the allegations, production on the reality series T.I. and Tiny, Friends and Family Hustle, was suspended while the situation drew widespread media attention. Reports also surfaced suggesting that T.I. would not appear in the upcoming Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, even though he had appeared in the previous 2 Ant-Man films within the Marvel Studios franchise. A source close to production later stated that T.I. was not part of the new film, although they also noted there had already been no clear plans for his return in the 3rd installment. Then in January 2024, another lawsuit was filed. T.I. and Tiny Harris faced a new civil complaint from an anonymous accuser identified as Jane Doe. The lawsuit alleged that the couple drugged and sexually assaulted a woman they met at a Los Angeles nightclub back in 2005. According to a complaint filed in a Los Angeles court, attorneys for the accuser claimed that after meeting the couple in the VIP section of the club, she was given a drink that had been tampered with. The lawsuit alleged that she was later taken back to a hotel room where the situation escalated into assault. The case was filed under California's Sexual Abuse and Cover-Up Accountability Act, a law that created a temporary 4-year window through 2026, allowing individuals to bring forward cases that might otherwise have been blocked by the statute of limitations.